But in this case, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at my DVD collection, and okay, I'm breaking it down into two films now. No dying.
Hi, I'm John Leinenkugel, and I'm 1/3 of Two Kept Men.
Hi, I'm Dave Nesbitt. I have a number of beers in front of me. I think I will hold up this one because it has the coolest name. I am currently drinking a Turbo Dog, but I also have a Weisstefiner Fest beer in front of me, and then a nice Dutch lager as well, because it's Friday, and fuck it.
I agree.
I'm Dan Carlson. Fuck it.
There you go.
I'm drinking Mike's Harder Lemonade, which is a strange name for a drink, but that's what I'm drinking. What is going to be your first drink today, John? Like Dave said, it's like we're in an arms race with you today.
I think I'm going to start with the Leinenkugel's Berry Weiss.
Ooh,
okay. And you've properly hydrated beforehand and done a lot of you've eaten a hearty breakfast to make sure that you can.
I had a hearty breakfast.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
So I don't know if this is an episode of Drunk Reviews or because I guess if there was ever a show that should be called Drunk Reviews, maybe should be this one.
Yeah, if it's not yet, it's going to be.
Okay. It was my turn to pick a movie this week, and I picked my favorite documentary of all time.
Oh, that is so good. Oh my God.
It's very tasty, yep.
Berry Weiss.
Oh. Anyway, Daniel, what was your favorite documentary of all time?
I think this one right now. Devil and Daniel Johnston from 2005. I first came across this movie. I was renting Netflix DVDs, and I rented something else, and there was a trailer for it. And I kind of thought it was maybe a parody. It didn't look like it was this couldn't be a real person. This couldn't be a real story. I thought it was going to be kind of a Bob Roberts kind of thing or something. So I rented it. I'm a huge fan of Pink Floyd, and I'm fascinated by the whole Syd Barrett thing. So the idea of this reclusive artist kind of fed into my obsessions in that area. When I sat down to watch the movie, I was not ready for just how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Daniel Johnston was a guy who just started recording albums on cassette. And when I say recorded albums, I don't mean he recorded them once and then made a bunch of copies. I mean, every time he made a tape for someone, he reperformed the album from scratch.
Yeah, because he didn't have the equipment to dub it, apparently.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. And
Dave's done that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you've re-recorded an album that you've already recorded just to...
There's been a few times where I've had to sit down and re-record an entire album because of the fact that I lost all the files for it.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah. And I've also had to sit down and help people with re-recording some of their own stuff because they're like, well, we did it. Oh, my favorite example of this, I wasn't involved, although I wish I was, but the band Killing Joke went back and re-recorded all the drums for their first record with Dave Grohl because they had when they got the masters for their record, they lost all of the drum tracks. So Dave Grohl, being a fan, they called him up and said, "Hey, are you available?" And he said, "Hell yeah, I'll be right up there."
Yeah, he'll do anything, and which is a good thing, Right off the bat, he's the perfect subject for a documentary almost from the beginning because he's been documenting everything so obsessively since he was a child. When they interview people in this movie about his home movies as a kid, they can pull the home movies right out and show them to you.
I think it was really funny how he would record his mom and then lip sync her on his videos.
And his travails with his mother are sort of a running concept album sort of thing. He just basically has, instead of Pink Floyd sound effects bridging the songs, he's got his mom yelling at him.
Yeah.
And but the thing about the songs is his vision exceeds his ability, but in a good way. You can tell by the songs that they're brilliant, and you can tell that there's a Beatles sound to them, and that there's if he were able to record them the way he had them in his head, he'd probably be up there with the Beatles or the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But
if anything, he's somebody who I was mentally I'm watching this film, and all I can think of is I was making a lot of Brian Wilson comparisons. You know, because Wilson's obviously had some very well-documented issues with mental health.
Right.
And a lot of his issues, aside from, you know, dealing with emotional abuse and everything else, was simply going, I have a vision for something, but at the time he couldn't do it. And in a strange sort of way, I think that Daniel, having the limitations of not having a recording studio and everything else, actually forced him to become a better songwriter, because he was like, I just have to keep it simple. And I think he had so many ideas going at any given time, he just had to knock them out as soon as they happened.
And John's actually said on more than one occasion that he thinks Austin, Texas needed Daniel Johnston and vice versa. I don't know if you want to expand on that. Well, you lived in Austin.
Yeah, I lived in Austin, and Austin is unlike any other city I've ever been in, really. It's incredible. It's exciting. It's terrifying. It's mysterious. It's goddamn sexy. And most of all, it's weird. And Daniel Johnston makes up several of those things. Not in my opinion the sexy one, but he's all to
somebody out there.
He's all but one of those as far as I'm concerned. And Austin, Texas needed him. That's why he ended up there. You know, when at one point, at a couple points, and I don't know how much more he could have contributed to the Keep Austin Weird movement.
Yeah.
I've only seen bumper stickers for 2 cities that say keep whatever weird, but it started with Austin.
Yeah.
God, Austin really captured me for everything that it was that no other city could be.
Yeah. There's something about, especially when you take a city that exists inside of a particularly conservative culture, the people who are artists and musicians and such within that are going to be way more upfront and kind of prouder about who they are, because they exist in an environment that doesn't really do a whole lot to support them.
It clearly affected Daniel being raised in such a strongly religious environment,
and yet, strangely religious environment.
Yes. But it also seemed to me that his parents, even Roger Ebert said, his parents were the best parents he could have got in a lot of ways.
No, I think that with his mental issues, because he's both schizophrenic and bipolar. I think that on a subconscious level, he kind of imprinted on the notion that the devil was out to get him, and that that is such a key element of a lot of very conservative Christianity in the Church of Christ and all of that. That it was the one thing that mentally, I think, or on a conscious level, he felt he could kind of put his back up against, and constantly go to for solace. And I have friends of mine who suffer from extreme bipolar disorder, who in some of their swings in either direction enter into delusional states. And and they go to the thing that will comfort them the most. And in his case, it was religion.
Right.
But unfortunately, you're sitting there and you're watching him, and it's like there are moments when he would enter some of the worst of his manic states, and you watch him falling apart because he desperately wants to have a sense of salvation, and he never gets it unless he's in the process of doing something creative.
Yeah.
And I think that the religion gave him a reference point to be creative in, but I also think that it gave him a sense of ongoing fear for his soul. And those things can drive you, but as you watch him, especially that scene with him with Sonic Youth, you just watch it destroy him, and it was killing me the whole way through.
Yeah, he became very very strong in his beliefs as time went on, and I think we were just kind of talking about it a little bit. And Dan, you mentioned that or was it you, Dave, that the LSD probably didn't help very much.
The last thing you want to do is give a schizophrenic LSD.
Oh my God. They see such terrible things to begin with.
Right. I mean, your brain is already wired to go into straight up moments of misfiring in the worst possible ways.
Yeah.
At any given time. So, schizophrenia, you talk to a psychiatrist and he'll tell you that an attack dose of LSD, if you don't know what you're doing, is exactly like an attack of schizophrenia. So whoever it was, I just want to find the person who thought, hey, let's give Daniel acid. I want a time machine to go back and punch that person in the face. You think, ooh, what you got? We'll come back in a minute.
Are you on to your second already?
Yep. Well, for Two Kept Men, I've got 2 women.
Hey!
Oh, wait, there's 3 of us. This could be a problem.
Yeah. Sorry. I will share it with both of you.
Oh, thank you.
It is from the New Glarus Brewing Company in Wisconsin, who also puts out Spotted Cow.
Oh.
If you've never had Spotted Cow, it's a indigenous beer from Wisconsin.
Oh, nice.
It's good too. It's really good.
Yeah. I was going to get one, but then I saw 2 women, and they just looked so beckoning. I mean,
just saw it, and it was thematically similar to our show.
Yeah, and well, I mean, come on. I mean, who's not going to want a beer with 2 women on it?
Yep.
There's a whole story about them.
It seems like you're fishing for an endorsement.
No,
we all are really. So anyway, getting back to LSD and escapism.
I'm going up in alcohol content, by the way.
Oh, good. So are those escalating?
Yeah, they're escalating. This one doesn't list the alcohol content, so I don't know. So I'm drinking that one second. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And then I'll go from there.
Do we know, was he diagnosed? He certainly seems to present symptoms of schizophrenia, but has he been diagnosed?
I've read I went back and I read a couple of bios on him, and every one of them mentioned both bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. So my guess is he was probably diagnosed as both. And
he did spend time in a mental hospital.
He spent quite a bit of time.
Yeah, I think 3 different ones that they mentioned.
So probably the most amazing thing to me in this movie is that he had a manager who was so devoted that he got him a recording contract that required him to never be fired, to never be required to tour, to make as many albums, as little or as many albums as he wanted, and to pay him every year or whatever for the rest of his career. And this manager got this for him, and he turned it down because it was with Elektra, who also had Metallica on their roster, and Metallica was someone that Daniel viewed as satanic.
Yeah.
So he was actually on the verge of making things better for his family. He could have supported them. I'm sure he did to some extent. I'm sure he made enough money to keep his family.
Yeah, eventually he did. Yeah. He bought his parents' house.
Oh, that's cool.
For them.
But he could have been set up for life, you know.
Yeah, if I was Electro Records, I would have just sat there and handed him that deal just because he would be one of those guys, kind of like Willie Nelson before he was Willie Nelson, but Willie Nelson made an insane amount of money and still does off of songwriting royalties and publishing. And Electra could have sold tons of his songs.
You could look at Daniel Johnston as someone who wouldn't be able to sell his own records, but whose songs could be really popular with other artists.
Oh yeah,
and make a lot of money that way.
I mean, can you, especially at that point in time when you had a lot of like, you had the onset of, you know, the Austin scene, the Milwaukee scene was blowing up at the same time.
Really? I didn't know there was a Milwaukee scene.
The Violent Femmes, the Bodie.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I guess I never think of them as Milwaukee.
Psychedelic Furs, I believe, were from Milwaukee as well, weren't they?
Yeah. And I just, a little flashback. I remember going to a MTV 120 Minutes show. Violent Femmes were the headlining act. It was Jerry Harrison and the Casual Gods, which was Talking Heads without David Byrne. Public Image Limited, and the Bodines opened up the show.
Okay.
Nobody could top the Bodines. They were that fucking good. Holy shit, what a great band. Anyway.
I've seen the Femmes now in 4 different cities.
And you can walk down, I still love the fact that you can walk down Grand Avenue in Milwaukee, and that band that's just hanging out, that dude who's busking, who is playing Violent Femmes covers. Yeah, that's the Violent Femmes. They're just doing rehearsal. It's Tuesday. And they had nothing better to do on it, you know. And
that's great.
But I love the sense that I think that Elektra realized that they had a gold mine with Daniel Johnston, because they could have just taken any one of a number of pop artists, handed off some of Daniel's songs, and I mean, you listen to the structure of those songs, and they exist just fine on themselves. Now let's turn it loose with a producer who really can do. Can you imagine? I mean, anybody. I mean, I can imagine anybody from Prince to
Bob Rock,
or any really good producer hearing the structure of those songs and going, "Give me that. We're going to do some amazing stuff with this."
Yeah.
And, I mean, because the songs were all structurally sound, and lyrically, he's just devastating. He's so good.
He's so childlike that you can almost you almost don't expect the lyrical complexity that comes out of him.
But it's also, I think it's the lyrical complexity of a childlike mind, in that there's no barrier. When we're adults, we learn how to put up filters on ourselves to not say certain things. And Daniel's songs were all straight from the very core of who he was.
Yeah.
And it felt like you were sitting there taking an X-ray of a person's soul when you read his lyrics. And you're like, dear God, I love listening to his songs, but they're also not something I make a routine habit of. Like over this entire week, I've been listening to Daniel Johnston music, and then I'm like, I've got to take a break because this is getting a little too real. It makes you call back to childhood so hard, you know.
That Sid Barrett was the same way. You know, a lot of his stuff was. He's singing about gnomes and
effervescing elephants.
Effervescing elephants.
But at the same time, he's also singing songs about a guy who likes to steal women's underwear and such. Off of lines, but as a kid, that's a chuckle. It's not about fetish. It's some weird thing that somebody does.
Well, Nick Mason said something great about Sid Barrett. He was talking about how he just kind of turned his back on rock stardom, and then they were describing Sid's behavior, and they were describing the Floyd's behavior in response to him, because they're not all happy with the way they responded, because it's difficult to know in those moments how to respond.
Yeah.
But they're looking back and they're going, are you sure it's Sid who has the problem? Yeah.
I mean, Sid was rapidly turning into, and much the same with Daniel, I can't imagine being in a band with him.
Right.
I just because trying to keep up with him, it would be like, okay, we need to sit down. The moment when you sit down and go, okay, we need to do some overdubs and then do some mixing on the Daniel.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So you're like a bunch of session guys, play whatever you want all over it. He's got the structure of another song that he wants to write.
Well, he did find a band at the end of the movie. It's a documentary, so it's hard to talk spoilers. But
yeah,
he does find a group of younger people that he gathers with in I don't know where he was living at the time, but he ended up in a band with them at the point. I think it's called Danny and the Danny and the something. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, he was in this kind of heavier band, but still kind of doing his whimsical lyrics. And
he was almost sounding like post-punk there.
Yeah.
At the end there.
It's kind of like Joy Division.
Danny and the Nightmares. That's what it was.
Okay. And he met them because he was walking down the road and he got attacked by dogs. And the people thought they should stop and help him. They're like, hey, that guy looks like Daniel Johnston.
There's a lot of fortuitous happenstance in his life.
That scene where Johnston Moore and Lee Ronaldo are driving around New York looking for Daniel because he's disappeared.
Yeah.
Oh, first of all, hands up and mad respect to both of them for taking care of the guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have so much respect for Sonic Youth now.
Yeah. I mean, I love Sonic Youth as a band, but now I genuinely like them as people.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the same reason I got as downright shit-faced as I did at Parkside, because I knew I could rely on all of you guys to take care of me, and so many times you guys did.
It's something, because I remember one time, the Parkside experience, but I remember one time I got hopelessly, stupidly drunk. And a guy who you may or may not, me?
Say it isn't so.
Oh, but my friends took care of me, Chris Pavletic, Mike Ruffalo, but definitely the one who stands out the most to me at that particular moment was, you may or may not have met him, but Sean Arena. Sean, first of all, Sean punched me in the eye for my own good because I was really drunk and belligerent and knocked me on my ass. And one of 2 times I'm grateful somebody hit me. And then Sean drove me home, and I'm like, hey, man, why are you taking care of me? He's like, dude, in the end, we take care of our own. End of story. And I always held on to that.
Yep, that's true.
And I think that we and Thurston and the rest of Sonic Youth are like, look, we're weirdos. He's a weirdo. We're all making odd music, and we can't lose somebody like Daniel.
Right.
And mad respect to him for that.
Okay, so the potion that I get for my vape is called Twisted, and right now I have Twisted Peach in here, but most of the time it's a Twisted Lemonade. Well, this is a Twisted Lemonade Peach, and when you drink a fruity beverage that is fermented, and you take a sip. And then you take a vape. The flavors.
This is beginning to feel less like a movie review and more like a commercial for beer.
The flavors intermingle and linger. And it's so satisfyingly delightful. I'm telling you that
John's trying for his Mountain Dew commercial, Daniel did.
Well, I'm just saying that Mountain Dew missed out. Bad song, man.
Yeah. Well,
they could have cut out like the last,
the part where you start talking about demons.
Yeah. I mean, that could have been left out, but man, that was a good commercial.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I was drinking a Mountain Dew at the time that came on. So
one of the things I was bringing up is that there's a lot of synchronicities in this movie. There's probably the centerpiece of one of the stories that's most effective is that his father is talking about the time when Daniel had just played to 3,000 people in front of a huge gig where he was getting a lot of love and everything. He was off his meds. They were going to fly home, and they were flying, and he was looking at a Casper comic and saw that Casper could fly without a parachute. So he decided he was going to take the keys of the plane, pull it out of the ignition, and throw them out the window. And his father...
After turning the plane off.
His father, thankfully, was a very well-trained pilot and was able to land without serious injury. But when he tells the story, it's just heartbreaking. And
if he landed into 2 large trees.
Right.
And the plane
would crash, but it was still...
They were mostly okay.
Yeah. You know, and Daniel seemed to have really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he did. But the sign that his mother, they were just like going past this church or whatever, and the sign said, "God promises a happy landing, but not," or "God promises a safe landing, but not a happy journey," or something like that.
But not a safe journey, yeah.
Not a safe journey.
There's a comment that somebody made, and I can't remember who it was. Sometimes I keep it in mind. They're like, coincidence and synchronicity are God's little way of saying hi.
I'm still here.
It's one thing to know that you're going to get a good punchline, but sometimes the setup is the thing. We were sitting there going, can we get through this? And like Daniel Johnston's life, and especially with his family, you're sitting there and you're like, wow, this guy would not have survived had it not been for some of these people. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he seems to be surrounded by angels at all times. It seems.
Yeah, and those
always looking out for
those angels come in the form of very good people, because that's what it's about.
Well, for me, the whole point of this movie, that the whole point of Daniel Johnston's story that really gets to me is like he just went out in there and did it. Like I said, if you'd heard his stuff, like it's off key, it's kind of it's haphazard. No one would hear that and go out and play a 3,000 seat arena, but he did it, and he's just like you said, handing out his tapes at McDonald's.
I love the idea that he's sitting there putting cassette tapes into a McDonald's bag, and it's like, you're sitting there, I got a cheeseburger, I got this, and I've got a Daniel Johnston demo.
Hi,
Let's give it a listen.
Hi, I'm Daniel Johnston. This is my tape. I was having a mental breakdown when I recorded it. Here.
Yeah.
That whole scene with the audience watching him as he's getting up playing for MTV.
Yeah.
Is one of the most amazing, moving moments I've ever seen in a film.
Yeah. What you got there? What you got there, Dave?
A Pilsner Urkel.
He's drinking that Urkel stuff again.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just saying, laugh at the name as much as you want, but it is a great quality beer.
I believe it.
Great Czech Republic.
The best beers have the most unfortunate names.
Yes.
Like this one, which I'll eventually get to. It's called Fat Tire.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one, actually.
Is it? Good.
Yeah.
And then I have Hazy Rabbit at the end, which is like 7. That
would have been my first.
No, because that I'm going to finish off with, because I'm going to be a Hazy Rabbit by the time I get there.
I was going to say I still have the Belgian triple, 4 of those, because I found out as I was drinking, I'm like, wow, this feels really strong. Oh, it's 10.2 alcohol by volume. Drink 2, don't make any plans.
So, let's see, where were we at the movie? We're talking about the synchronicities and
the synchronicities and such. Also, getting back to the Sonic Youth thing, what are the chances driving around New York, going into New Jersey, that you're going to find the guy, you're the only people out looking for him in a city the size of the 5 boroughs.
And there he is.
Yeah. Walking along in his white T-shirt.
Like, seriously, if you want to take a moment and believe in some sort of higher power, name that power whatever you will. That power was spending a lot of time looking after Daniel Johnston and finding the people that would help him to at least survive long enough to make some great art. Holy shit.
Yeah, not only music type art, but visual art.
Visual art is amazing.
Yeah. And I tried to order some about a year ago when I first saw this, and you don't get a response from anybody anymore. So,
back in 2006 or so, when this movie was still pretty new, you could go on the website and still buy his art, buy his cassettes that were manufactured on demand by, I assume, his manager, who was doing all that kind of gluing covers onto the cassettes, and just really DIYing it straight into oblivion in a good way.
Also, his manager deserves so much credit for staying with him and keeping him current and keeping him alive.
Well, he's the reason we can still hear his stuff. If he
Yeah.
hadn't curated all that stuff, we'd be,
Yeah.
Sometimes you find a
We'd
person.
be shit out of luck.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find a person in the music and art business who is in it because they love music and art.
Well, I got the impression, and I could be wrong, that he wasn't a manager before that. He wasn't like in the music industry. He just really liked Daniel's music. He figured no one else was going to put it out there, so he would take the reins and do what had to be done.
That's actually another kind of like Joy Division comparison, because their manager was somebody who was just a DJ who heard Joy Division and went, "I will fucking manage you." You know? Fortunately, he also happened to know every venue in Manchester, and his manager happened to know enough people in the music scene in Austin. So it worked out well.
Well, and Dan handed his tape to some DJ, and the DJ and him kind of struck up a friendship. And the DJ talks about how he gets a phone call in the middle of the night around Christmas, and Daniel's in a creek, having a breakdown, kind of giving a baptism to the air or whatever he's doing. But that DJ possibly mixed with that manager was just the perfect storm of what needed to happen. So, and Kurt Cobain wearing his T-shirt didn't hurt.
Yeah, he wore that T-shirt everywhere.
Yeah, it's not like he just wore it once and just said whatever. He must have really been a big fan of Daniel's to keep wearing that shirt over and over again.
I think that Daniel represented something to Kurt Cobain that Kurt kind of wanted, in that he had that incredible capacity to sit down and knock out something, spontaneously, and then he just put it out. And Kurt Cobain had the blessing and the curse of being so successful that, I mean, as much as Nevermind by recording industry standards didn't take that long or that much money to record, it was still, it's a process to record an album, and there's got to be a certain kind of like jealousy or a certain desire to just sit there and go, I'm going to put a microphone in front of me and play a piano or a guitar and knock it out and put it out there, and that's all I want to do.
Well, I know Cobain was the happiest in his life based on the biographies I've read after About a Girl came out during the Bleach album as a single. He's like, I'm on the radio. I have a certain amount of success. People know who I am. I'm making money, but it's not insane.
Yeah.
But when Nevermind hit, he wasn't ready for that. He didn't necessarily want that level of stardom. I think he wanted to be a star, but he didn't want to be the next Michael Jackson as far as grunge goes.
And that's the great story is that Nevermind got to be as huge as it was based on returns. Because on Christmas that year, everybody was buying Bad by Michael Jackson. Oh, not Bad. Actually, I think it was Bad.
Yeah.
For their kids. And then they went back, returned the record, and got Nevermind for it. But I don't think there are certain people who I think should be successful to a degree, but that success is not anything more than that is not good for them. And Daniel Johnston is a good example, and Kurt Cobain is a good example too.
Yeah. And John actually was at a Bruce Campbell speech where Bruce Campbell was talking about how famous he wanted to get. He goes, I'm famous enough. Any more famous and they're going through my garbage.
Yeah.
So he's like, there's a certain level of fame that is rewarding, and you make money and you're doing well and people love you, but you're not afraid to leave your house. And
you're not
getting death threats.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
It's like there's a great comment that George Harrison made where he said, look, I'll be honest. I always said I wanted to be successful. I never said I wanted to be successful. And fame, I was having a conversation with somebody else. I'm like, I don't know how I would handle fame because it's so fucking intrusive.
Well, Dave, you are famous.
Yeah.
To a degree. It's
to
nice.
me anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a star.
Some people in town recognize me and know who I am for performing, but
I had a weird brush with that. When I went to a convention once, I was, I guess, mistakenly given a guest badge rather than just a standard exhibitor / vendor. Yeah, and because so we were doing demos and panels and stuff like that, but didn't warrant a guest badge.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wandering through the convention. It was a giant convention in Houston, and people were stopping me to take my picture. And I'm just like, I'm nobody. And they're like, can we get a picture with you? And I'm like, okay. I had no idea why. And they had no idea why, because, you know, obviously they'd never seen me before. They just saw the guest badge. But going from one end of the convention to the other was difficult. So I understand that. I don't know how they deal with that all the time, especially if they have notoriety just based on their face and not a badge. But I did have a genuine brush with it when I went to a convention, and 3 people over the course of the weekend like sought me out to have me sign something that I had written. Oh. So that was kind of neat. But
it kind of makes you rethink your interaction with the guy from Princess Bride, maybe, because John tells a story about Carrie Elwes. I don't know if you want to get into that or not.
Yeah, he was kind of a dick.
Okay, but maybe he was just constantly being bombarded, and you just happened to be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, yeah. You know, him and Bob Uecker. Bob Uecker was a dick.
Out of all of the people I could imagine coming up in this, Bob Uecker was not one.
One of the
you wouldn't think, but yeah, no, he was extremely rude to me. I wasn't even like being weird or anything. I was just kind of thanking him for what he did for baseball. And he got all pissed off, and, you know, I was just going to ask him if I could shake his hand, you know? And I said, can I? And he cut me off, and he goes, not a chance. And then he reaches forward, presses the next button on the elevator thing, and shakes his head as he gets off. And
it's,
I was being really nice. I wasn't being like fanboy or anything like that. I'm like, yeah, because it was in Texas. And I said, you know, I'm from Milwaukee as well. He had a Brewers cap on. So I try to make it really nonchalant. I'm like, oh, I'm from Milwaukee as well. Do you like the Brewers, huh? He goes, yeah. And I go, yeah, you kind of remind me of this really famous announcer we had named Bob Uecker. And he goes, yeah, that's me. I was like, well, you know, hey, I just want to say thanks for everything you did for baseball. Can I? And he, not a chance. Click off the elevator. And I'm like, what cock?
It's something, though, that I think, I don't know, I'm not there, I'm not that guy, but one of the things that I do at conventions is I occasionally get the opportunity to escort celebrities around.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, like, there's a picture, if you take a look at my Facebook, there's a picture of me and Mick Foley.
Oh, cool.
And Mick, by the way, if you want to meet the nicest person in the world, meet Mick Foley. The man is just as nice as you ever heard he is. It's bullshit. He's nicer than that. He's genuinely, which is odd for a guy who hits people with 2x4s wrapped in barbed wire. But that's like,
yeah, you know.
Well, he probably gets most of the aggression out of it.
Oh yeah. But one of the other people that was at the first convention we ever did this with was Jamie Bamber, who's the guy who played Apollo on New Battlestar Galactica. And Jamie also, by the way, was really sweet and very nice and an absolute gentleman the entire way. But one of the things I noticed was that he asked for 2 different badges. So he had his guest badge for Comic-Con, and then he just had a regular attendee badge.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And so he's not doing autographs or anything, and he basically tells his escort, hey, I got this. It's cool. You know, it's going to be okay. So, all right. And so I'm sitting there in the hall, and Jamie's just sitting there checking out books and stuff. And somebody walks up and goes, wow, you really look like Jamie Bamber. Now, keep in mind, Jamie's English, but the character he's most known for speaks in an American accent. So he just speaks in his normal voice and goes, yeah, I get that all the time. If I ever meet that guy, I really want to shake his hand. And the guy just takes it and walks off. I thought that was a brilliant way to handle it. I thought, man, well done. Yeah. Well played, sir.
One of the things that really, like I was saying on the last portion where we were filming, Daniel's wherewithal to keep going, even though he didn't have any reason to keep at his career. it kind of inspired me to do my synthesizer music, and just the idea that you don't have to master something in order to try it and to make it worth putting out there, whether somebody likes it or not.
I don't think he had a choice. I think that creation and music and visual arts and everything that he did was the only way that he knew how to express who he was. And he wanted to show, hi, this is who I am, and this is how I feel, and this is at any given moment.
In fact, that's the name of his first tape. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? But I don't think that there are some people in this world who are like, you know what? I don't have a choice. I have to do this. There's no midpoint. There's no arguing about it. It's not about being a career. It's about expressing who you are and wanting the entire world to see it, whether or not you make a dime off of it or not. Says the guy who sold 700 novels. I mean,
hey, that's a lot of novels.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have 700 books in my collection right now.
The new one's coming out next year, but yeah.
I think
it's amazing how you either meet or you kind of observe somebody that really kind of motivates you to take your creativity to the next level. For me, it's Jesse down in Texas, who was my leatherworking mentor.
Oh yeah.
And it was pretty amazing, how strong of a friendship we forged, and just how inspiring she was for me to actually do it when I didn't think that I had any talent in it whatsoever. And then I started making things, and she really, and it sold all the time. So, it's one of those things. And boy, do I miss being, able to hang out with her and her husband, friends.
I think that's one of the things that's cool about this, is that it teaches you that there's people that you can connect with that, put you back in touch with that. And Daniel had a lot of those people around him. And
This documentary really makes a person think about all those things.
I don't know how much we covered of the movie, but I give it a enthusiastic press play. It's my favorite documentary.
It's one of those films that I won't watch it very often, but there's something both inspiring and also at the same time sobering about it as well. And I've got to press play on it every chance that I get.
Yeah.
Just when I'm in that mode of sitting there going, man, I just don't feel the creative mode. Now I do.
Yep. It just comes.
John?
I say press play for a plethora of reasons.
Give us a couple.
They are that it is inspiring, it's moving, it's frightening.
It's kind of funny too. It's probably the first thing you think of, but I thought it was funny.
Yeah. And there's a certain amount of you feel akin in some ways to the struggles that he is going through. Not all of us have those kind of issues, but we certainly feel some of the struggles that he felt tenfold. We all feel persecuted at times. We all feel really excited about our abilities sometimes. We really feel ambition, that sometimes is overrated. What I mean is that sometimes we're over ambitious. But we don't take it to a level that puts us in a home.
Yeah.
And
we're not driven to madness by our desire to create.
Right.
Well,
I could have said just that.
Do you think that the madness came out of? Do you think the madness came out of his desire to create, or do you think creativity kind of rescued him from his madness? That's what I thought.
I think the creativity rescued him from his madness. He feels like someone who mentally... Okay, this is going to sound way worse when I say it, but I'll explain it in a second.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that mentally he was ever capable of growing into adulthood. I think that...
I'm with you.
Yeah, I think we can all resonate with this because we're all gamers and we're all escapists and we all have places that we would prefer to be.
Yeah.
But we are still capable of living in the adult world and faking it with the best of it.
Yeah. And that's the best way to describe it too, Dave, is we're faking it.
Yeah. I don't want to be a part of the world that these people are dealing with. Fuck those guys. I want to go out there and like make superhero stories and do crazy shit.
Right. Exactly.
Daniel couldn't fake it. He was going to be that perpetual child that would be jumping out in the rain, dancing in puddles, singing his songs, no matter how many times you begged him not to.
Out of a
Well,
plane.
you don't want him to. You
Right.
know, he struck me as somebody who, I think that the LSD thing transitioned it somewhat, but I honestly think that he was somebody who was absolutely incapable of existing as an adult.
I
And
agree.
I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. The problem with adulthood is that we sometimes allow ourselves to step away from things that would be really, really fucking good for us.
Yeah.
Like play or creating. You don't have to release an album and sell 1 million copies. You can just go out there and write a song because you felt like writing a song.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a great song. It's just you.
Now that I think about it, I'm not so sure that Daniel made a mistake by not signing with Elektra. Maybe that was his, as crazy as some of it sounded, maybe he was feeling intuitionally that it was not the best for him.
Right. I think you make a really good point there. He really enjoyed touching people, and I enjoy touching people, and I know Dave does, and I know you do, and
I don't have enough day-to-day experience to add to the discussion in this regard.
well, the fact when somebody tells you that something you did made a difference for them.
Oh, okay. You're talking about emotional touching.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I enjoy
touching.
I enjoy when I've
I enjoy knowing that something I did during the day made somebody's day suck less. It's part of the reason I actually enjoy my day job. So,
I firmly recommend this movie. I think everybody, not everybody needs to see it. There's people who are just not going to like it.
There are some people who are going to look at Daniel Johnston as a perpetual burden, and they're going to miss the point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the music won't grab you immediately. If it doesn't grab you immediately, it's not unusual to have that reaction.
It's because you're moving too fast.
Yeah,
that's the only reason that the music wouldn't grab you is because you didn't take the time to actually listen to it.
Well, I've always likened making music to the process of creating a gemstone. Of creating a gemstone. Diamond or something like that. Where you find the initial raw rock. And then the next stage is you sit there and you cut it into a shape that you really like. And I think that that's where Daniel was absolutely amazing at, where he could sit there, take a raw idea, and turn it into something that you wanted to listen to. Now, the thing that kept him from being a massive force in the music industry, which he really could have been, is the thing that drove Brian Wilson insane, was the last part, which is when you polish it into something that everybody can look at and appreciate. And I think that Daniel had the ability to find the raw idea and to cut it into something that was still in its rawest form, but you could recognize as an absolute piece of art waiting to happen. What he couldn't do was follow through, because the next idea was waiting for him and he couldn't be bothered with it. And
Yeah.
I think that
He
is
could-
both a blessing and the curse.
He couldn't follow through with the final draft.
Yes.